of metabolism. I think they're diseases of the neural pathways in our brain. And that's really what my business Pro Attitudes is all about. Really changing people's neural pathways by tiny, tiny steps. Taking a commitment to doing what you can, not what you should.
Oh, I have so much to say, but you know me, Yanko, I could just keep going. So do you want to add before I put my 2 cents in?
No, go ahead, because I was talking about that I had similar problems with being heavy and having to make changes in life. And and one of the things because that he asked me what I'm struggling into changing, it's caffeine addiction and coffee that I'm dealing with right now. But go ahead and throw your input on.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, one, listen, I quit coffee and I decided I like that flavor too much. And so I am happy to say that I'm keeping that addiction and I'm going to own it until I don't own it anymore. But okay, so there's so much that you said that I love, and I really try to talk to people about this. It's micro changes consistently, because if you try to do too much too fast, you're going to self-sabotage unconsciously, because your subconscious is wired to believe that you're not worthy of experiencing those new habits, experiences, the environment. So it is truly crucial to start small, because that starts to change the grooves, the neural pathways in your brain. And I love that so much, because you just see it too often that people want to make a change and they dive head first, and then a month later, not only did they regress, but they're actually worse off, because now not only did they not see the results they had hoped for, they're beating themselves up. Secondly, what I really love to hear you say is the should have. Should have is one of the worst words in the English dictionary, along with can't, try, because they're limiting words. And so, to your point, when I'm a big believer of being curious, rather than coming from judgment, right? And should have is a form of judgment. You come from a place of curiosity. What is it that made me make this choice, and what might make me feel better, instead of I shouldn't have eaten the donut and now I feel crappy, right? And so I really love that, and I believe we've talked about this offline before. So I love your whole approach. And I'm just curious, I don't even know, like, how. So you said program, and I'm gonna keep it real with everybody out there. I hate the word program, hate it, because I know that our brains are like computers. They're supercomputers, and anything that you attach yourself to gets infused. And so I personally, and this is a me personal thing, right? Everybody's different. I like the idea of creating frameworks and structures, but it being a puzzle, because I don't ever want anybody to feel like they are required to do the exact thing that I tell them to do, because we're all so unique and different. And so that's just my one caveat that I would say I differ with you a little bit on, but I
No,
love
I
that the
agree.
work
I
you're
agree
doing.
with you. And it's semantics, but words have power. And I totally agree with you, because it's not about a program, it's about a process.
Mm. See,
And
I
the
love that.
right.
I
And
love
then
that.
the process leads to an identity. I have a client of mine, I helped him quit smoking. He was a smoker for 10 years, and he came to me after 10 years of quitting smoking, but he was smoking vaping. And his wife didn't even know. And he just wanted to give it up. He knew what I could do. We worked on it for a couple of months. And then one day he decided to stop. Like we had built it up to a point where he only could cut back so much. And then he said, okay, January 1st, I'm quitting. So great. He quit. We worked on it. He did not ever go back to vaping. But what was really fascinating, about a month ago, he said to me, you're going to love this. He said to me, I was in a place and somebody lit up a cigarette. And I went, oh, it's disgusting. And I said, that's what I'm talking about. That you are no longer a quitter. You are now a non-smoker. It's an identity. And that's a reframe. So this is what I do with people, is I help them reframe their belief systems, because part of the challenge here is, like you said, those words that we use in our minds, it all stems back from the inner critic, that one voice we hear in our head. We talk to ourselves more than we talk to anybody else, right? And usually when we are focused on that inner critic, it's negative. You said judgment, right? Yeah. That inner critic, it could be the faceless judge. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. You're not good looking enough. You're just not enough. I had a very strong inner critic, and it was like the faceless judge. As a matter of fact, I keep him up on my shelf because I shrunk him down to 8.5 inches. He used to be 6 feet tall. Whoops, sorry about that. But I call him Darth. But what I do is I teach people how to first identify it and then reduce the power that it has over you. And then what do? Let's develop your inner coach. And that's why I have him sitting on by my shelf.
Yoda. I love it. So I actually want to touch upon one other thing you said, because interestingly enough, it ties into what I was just talking to right before I jumped on here. Nobody's coming to save you. And I love that you said that. But I want to go a little bit deeper, because I went on a little bit of tangent. I don't ever want anybody to take what you say for face value, what Yanko says for face value, what Kerri says, what Eckhart Tolle says, what Jesus says, what Buddha says. And this is where I think people get really hung up on spiritual texts and stuff. And I pop off. Also, look at the mental health community and addiction community, right? Talk about programming. I know people who are dry drunks the rest of their life, and they're the most miserable people who sit in suffering because they're not numbing out the thing, but they've never learned to re-identify themselves as not an addict, right? I don't see myself as somebody who struggles with addiction, and I had a lot of addictions, right? But the reality is yes, the work that all three of us do, and many of the other people that I am connected with, are here to help create a framework and teach you tools, strategies, and hold space for you while you get curious, because it is an arduous process breaking up those beliefs, habits, and behaviors. But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to do the work. And if you're looking for Jesus, a guru, Kerri, somebody to give you the insights and the information that you specifically need to create the identity that feels really good for you, you're forever going to be in lack and suffering, because none of us have that, right? And yeah, I've read so much text, spiritual text, scientific text. I could quote endless people, but until I started looking internally and being like, that's great, it's a guide, but if I don't apply that in a way that feels really good for me, I'm still a slave to external words, circumstances, and beliefs, and I'm not learning what feels really good for myself. And so I love that you said that nobody's coming to save us, because at the end of the day, no matter how much you, myself, and Yanko want to help people, they ultimately have to do the work themselves.
I love that. I tell people, I'm the navigator, I'm not the driver. I will get you to base camp 1. I'm your Sherpa to base camp 2, base camp 3, up to all the way to the top. But I cannot drive the car for you or take the steps.
Yeah.
And it's about your independent search for your truth. I don't want you blindly imitating what somebody told you yesterday. Don't repeat what you did yesterday or the day before. It's really about finding a deeper meaning in life, in yourself, and making that connection. And that's why I created my program. It's the B3 method is about that independent search for your truth, to find that meaning so that you can have more joy in your life. Because that's really what it's about. Mojo, more moments of spontaneous joy. If you can't really have that, then you're, like you said, when you're curious, you're in the power state. But when you're feeling like, well, I need to hear what Evan's saying, or Yanko or Kerri, you're in the primal state. Like, oh, I'm lacking. There's something I'm lacking. And no, it's right there in front of you. All you need to do is bring yourself to that level, and you'll connect, and boom, and all of a sudden you go, well, change doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy. We create the obstacles because we're afraid. We want to stay in the comfort zone. The comfort zone is what keeps us stuck. And my job is to get you living life in forward motion. That's it.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll give you a really good example because I give this to my clients all the time. Because to your point, change can be very easy. It's just sticking to it, right? So I'll have a client, all their job is to do is drink a glass of water and celebrate themselves every day, right? What happens when they forget the one glass of water? So they realize it could be 20 minutes. Instead of just getting the glass of water, which is a change, just go get the glass of water. What do? You beat the crap out of yourself. Oh my God, I didn't get the glass of water. I'm so bad. I'm not. And that is what you're talking about. It's like, dude, all you had to do when you realized you didn't drink the water was go get the water, and that would have been fine. But instead, our overthinking mind is going to convince us that we're not doing a good enough job because we forgot the one glass of water. And so I laugh all the time because I used to do it endlessly. I would beat myself up, and then one day I realized, well, why don't I just go for the walk instead of yelling at myself for not walking first thing in the morning?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And part of the challenge is people think they're their thoughts and feelings and they react to them. And the one thing that I've learned more than anything, especially through self-awareness, is we're not our thoughts. We're not our feelings. We're the witness to our thoughts and feelings. And that's why the first step, or I call it's the attitude muscle. Developing your attitude muscle is the first step is self-awareness of just being a fly on the wall and being aware that when you don't do what you make a commitment to, you beat yourself up. Oh, okay. Instead of beating yourself up or not beating yourself up, it doesn't matter. What matters is the self-awareness of
Yep.
being aware that you're doing this. And then when you put light on it like that, shedding light on things is the best. It's the best sanitizer. It takes its power away. And that's where then we work on the next step. Well, where do you want to go? The next one is blueprint. What's the blueprint? That's another attitude muscle of having a vision of where you want to go. Once we work on that and we work on self-awareness, then we go, what's the next attitude muscle? Your internal compass. You know what's right or wrong. You know what to do. It's not about motivation. Motivation's fickle. It's about discipline. And I always tell people discipline is the highest form of self-love. And lastly, the last one is just stop thinking about it and just do something. Activate, take action. And that when we start practicing those 4 muscles, you got to put the reps in. You want to build your muscles, you go to the gym, you got to put the reps in. You can't go one day and expect that muscle to grow, right? Right? You got to do it day in, day out. I mean, does it take years? It can, but it does. And you're going to notice a difference in 3 or 4 weeks. Everyone else is going to notice a difference in a couple of months. And in 6 months, you're going to be on your way to a transformation.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. And it's instead of the expectations, it's the anticipation of I'm one day closer to where I want to be.
Ooh,
Instead
that's
of I'm not,
good.
yeah.
That's really good. I'm not. I tell people don't have expectations, but I've never really heard it framed as have the anticipation. That's really, really good. I love that so much.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
anticipation, there is no when you anticipate something, it's neither good nor bad. It's also there's no right or wrong. It's just an anticipation. It's just a mind frame. And I
Yep.
think that mind frames are one of the things that Kerri, when we talk, that you're really great at. And Yanko, if that's what you work with it's planting that new seed when you're doing when you're hypnotizing somebody, you must be planting that seed in their mind, an intention, right? Which is also about, self-awareness is the first step. Then you have to create the intention. And I think that we all complement each other because of that.
Yeah. And it's so important that you remain curious, right? Because the minute you're like, here's the thing is if I walk in and I'm like, oh, and then I know everything I know there is to changing your mind and stuff, right? I would never have been open to being like, oh, anticipation. Oh, that's a really great lens to be able to. And I think so often we get into these narrow ways of thinking, and it's like, well, it's just going to be this way. It's always going to be this way. It can't be. And what if all you do is just say, but what if it doesn't have to be? right? And just leaving it there, because that opens up the possibility. And then that's a great thing about our universe, is you'll get evidence that it doesn't have to be that way, right? That's how I built my unshakable self-worth and confidence. It was just like, well, what if I don't have to think I'm a worthless piece of crap? What if I could feel really good about myself? And then what could that look like? And just doing that, right? It activated our reticulating activating system, which is a part of the brain, guys, that is actively going to look for the thing that you direct it to look for, right? And if you're open to it not looking a certain way, because that's the other thing, people like, oh no, it has to look this and this, or it's not, nope, that's not for me. If you're just open, then you're like, oh crap, damn, okay, maybe, yeah.
And another part of your brain that you want when you make the commitment and keep it, even if it's hard, is you're developing a part of your brain that when it gets exercised, it grows. And it's the mid-cingulate, the
Cortex.
anterior mid-cingulate cortex that
Yep.
they say the more that you exercise it, the bigger it gets. But when you stop, it shrinks. So you have to keep doing it. And I call it Goggins it. You got to David Goggins it. David Goggins is the example of, grit and resilience. I don't want you to do what David Goggins does. It's crazy. But I have a cousin that just went and did a 102-mile race. I'm like, why was it 102? Isn't 100 miles is not enough? But 102 miles. But that is not about running 102 miles. It's about up here.
Mindset.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I read both of his books and I love him. I have mad respect, but there's no way I feel the need to put my body through that, to be pooping all over myself. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good with using the bathroom. I'm cool with it. And if that means I never run 102 miles.
I think he has to stop for the bathroom. But here's the thing, too. Like you said, it's endless possibilities. It's not like there's one way. I say there's so many roads that lead to Rome. I have tools in my toolbox that I talk to people about, and I have probably over 60 tools, because there's so many different tools. Everybody can use them all, but not every tool is for every person. And just like Yankov, I'm sure you don't give the same meditation or the same hypnotic suggestion to every person.
No.
Right.
No, actually, I work with whatever they bring in, and I was gonna bring something up, because usually people, when they make a decision and they say this is my issue, the issue is not the issue. It's the conclusion they made in their brain, or whatever they're thinking they're struggling with. And usually, when you start working with that, it turns out to be something else, because they're looking, the final goal is something else, but they're thinking, if I get this, then I'll lead me to the second step, and then that'll lead me to the third step, and so on until I get to my whatever my point is, or whatever I want to go, because I'm thinking this is my issue, and so I don't. And this is the difference between me. I'm just gonna put a plug up there. This is the difference between me and other hypnotists. Other hypnotists will read a script to you and get you to, like, say, quit smoking. If I read this to you, it'll work, but it won't work for you because you're a totally different person. Everyone is unique. There's not going to work. Whatever works for one person is not going to work for another person. So, and I truly believe that everyone has the ability and the tools within them to do the change they want to do. And I'm just there to support and help them change the mindset or the awareness, or to find that possibility of not thinking, well, this is the only way. There's other ways, like you were saying earlier, to get to where you're going. So that's what I wanted to bring up. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I love it, because as I alluded to earlier, right? We are so individualized, right? There's not another person on this earth who loves skulls the way I love them, who will show up with their hair sticking up, who will whatever, right? But that took a really long time to learn myself to say, I'm very comfortable with however I show up in the world, right? And you want to work with people who are not trying to tell you how you need to look, be, feel. You want to work with people like the three of us are, and there's a lot of us, right? There are a lot of people who understand that we are all individualized, and ultimately our goal is to help you break free from the conditions and the beliefs that you've experienced even when you were super little and you didn't know that you can't conjure up, so that you have the choice, you have the opportunity to decide how you want to experience your life. You get to choose. And that, I believe, is really what all of us do. Is it's not us telling you how you have to live. It's just giving you guidelines and framework to help you discover that for yourself, instead of just going along to get along. And something you said, Evan, that I love, and I really want to drill home to our audience because it's crucial. It's not just a mid-cingulate cortex that he's talking about, whether you're working it or not. It's your entire human experience, guys. We are meant for expansion and growth. And if you are not actively working to learn, grow, get curious, play, try new things, experience new people, engage in whatever, then you're contracting. And as you contract, you start to experience more of that overthinking, that stinking thinking. And what does that cause? That causes a flood of cortisol, norepinephrine, adrenaline. What does that do? You're going to feel heightened states of anxiety, depression, apathy, being lethargic. And so really, if nothing else, ask yourself, what is one small thing I can apply today so that way I can grow a little, even if it's reading one paragraph of one book, drinking one glass of water, going for a 2-minute walk. All of that and anything else is going to help you in your abilities to grow and expand, and prevent you from contracting and feeling small and unfulfilled, which is what none of us on this show want for you.
It's such a great point to have people understand that making commitments and keeping them is about what they can do, not what they should do. And I believe you've mentioned this in the past, so we're spiritual beings having a human existence.
Yep.
And understand that our human existence, we're hardwired for the comfort zone. That brain of ours wants to, are we safe? Fight or flight. We're in that's the first part of the lizard brain to go, hey, can we survive? Can we move on from this? That's the human brain. But the spiritual brain, I believe, or that part of our body, our minds, the existence, if whatever that energy is hardwired for growth. I think that it's duality of the two of those, that we're here for that. It's not like we're fighting it. It's the self-awareness of understand that we were born this way, but we're here to develop, to get out of our comfort zones. And what's outside our comfort zones? The fear zone. What's beyond the fear zone? Pain. Well, everyone's like, yeah, well, I don't want fear and I don't want pain. I'm going back to the comfort zone. No, because what's beyond the fear and the pain? It's the learning zone. That's the suck zone. That's when things suck. But if you can associate or reframe that when you're fearful, when you feel pain in what you're doing, and you go, oh, that means I'm outside my comfort zone. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. And then what's the next zone? That's where the magic happens. That's not the learning zone, but that's the growth zone. That's really what we're hardwired for spiritually. So that's something that I'm always teaching my clients, to understand that you're going to have fear, you're going to have pain, but if you embrace it from that reframe, you're going to grow your comfort zone. Actually, you're going to start getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's a good thing. And that's really part of how you're going to live your life in forward motion.
I love that. And for anybody who struggles with the word discipline, because I will tell you, Evan, I hated that word because again, when you associate yourself as being bad, right? The word discipline can have a very negative connotation. And so I again tell people, well, if that word doesn't serve you, what if it's devotion to self? Because right,
That's what it
it's the same
means.
thing.
Yes, same thing. But here's
Same
how I
thing.
explain it to people. Here's your compulsion to do whatever it is, eat, stay in bed, push that, snooze button, escape and numb yourself with drugs or alcohol. Here's the compulsion. When you start, your commitment is down here, but you need to make deposits. That's why I call it, making deposits. As you make deposits, your commitments become greater than your compulsion. Your compulsion doesn't go away. I bet you, if even though you might say, Kerri, oh yeah, I don't have those compulsions to take drugs, because your commitment to yourself, you've made so many deposits, and this is what gives you self-worth, that the compulsion just doesn't have its effect on you anymore. And when I learned that myself, that the compulsion wasn't going to go away, but I needed to build myself up by self-love and making those deposits to my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual needs, just like you put money in the bank. You got to put money in the bank. You might live paycheck to paycheck, but when you live paycheck to paycheck, what happens? You're a slave to the paycheck. You have to be able to say, well, let me put a little money away. And as you put money away, that dividends start to build. It doesn't happen overnight, but eventually it does. And then you have the freedom to choose. And that's Viktor Frankl's work. Really
Love him.
fascinating. So,
A man's search for meaning. Great.
mhm.
And in fact, logotherapy is one of the therapies that I am more aligned with because it is, for anybody who wants to know, he talks extensively about what is this experience helping, how's it serving me to help others, and how's it helping me grow. And so, and this man was in Auschwitz and part of the Holocaust. So again, to your point, we always have the choice. We get to save ourselves, and it really does come from your attitude. Your attitude is going to save you, um no matter what. People, to your point, we do fear, and I work with a lot of clients who struggle with control, right? This idea of control. We have no control, none.
It's an illusion.
The only control we have is our attitude and how we respond to what's going on. I
Mhm.
can't control COVID. I can't control my daughter's reaction. I can't control technology being funky, right? But I can control showing up and being excited about the show, whether I'm 20 minutes late or I never show up, right? And that's the reality. And when you recognize that, you have all the power you need.
You can't control your circumstances, but you can control your perspective. So beautiful. That's right,
Yeah.
Kerri. That's what it's all about. The Stoics talked about it thousands of years ago, or um, Aurelius, I think his name, and
Marcus Aurelius.
Mark. Yes. So I'm not a Stoic, but my client was a Stoic, and he's like, "Are you a Stoic?" And so I've been reading and studying more of that. But it's these are the lessons learned from people who've done deep thinking. That's really what it's about. It's the deeper work and becoming more aware. Once you have more awareness, then you can start working on acceptance that, you know what, this is life. Sometimes life's not fair, but I look at life through the lens of it's a gift or it's an opportunity. And if I can look through the lens of life that way, that things happen for me, not to me, it just changes everything. And through a lens of gratitude.
And I love
I
Stoicism.
love
I
that so
studied it
much.
extensively to the point where we are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not an act, but a habit. And that is by Aristotle. And it's sitting on my wall right here.
Yeah.
But you're spot on. Uh, with that, as we wrap up, Evan, is there anything that you would want to leave with the community?
Well, we talked a lot about the inner critic, and we talked a lot about, awareness, self-awareness. One of the really wonderful tools that I can give to people is I have a free course called Discover Your Inner Critic. And that course is a really simple quiz to take with an awful lot of content to provide you the tools to understand who your inner critic is and how to be a little kinder so you can start developing your inner coach.
I love that. Again, you nailed it. Kindness, guys, kindness. You know, the one thing we didn't touch a lot upon, but I will add it, is every small action you do, great, awesome, necessary. Celebrate the crap out of yourself. Celebrate watching the show, celebrate drinking water, celebrate downloading his course. Every minute thing, because if we know our inner critic is quick to judge us, then we have to be even quicker to be like, no, you get to sit down. I'm gonna celebrate the moment that I am worthy of celebrating, which is I drank that damn glass of water. So yes, all that's so good. Last words, Yanko.
No, I'm actually enjoy that show really, really nicely. Giving the way we started off with technical difficulties and everything, and I love how everything unfolded and everything went on, and it's just awesome. I don't have anything to add on really.
But you know what, guys? I'm going to leave you with this. Life is technical difficulties. It just is. You know, the reality is you can plan. I'm a former leader in corporate America, and I can have the best laid plan, but I'm going to tell you right now, as soon as I walked through those doors, that plan went to crap 90% of the time. And it's just our ability to pivot. And again, to what Evan said, perspective. So if you do nothing today, give yourself permission to laugh, because everything is worth a good laugh. And when you can laugh your way through life, you live life really joyfully. So with that, thank you
More,
guys so
more
much for
mojo.
joining us. Until next time, it's
Thanks for
Kerri,
having me.
Yanko, and I guess Evan for no particular reason.